Thank you for joining me for another yoga class. We're going to begin sat down, cross-legged. So please cross your legs. If crossing your legs doesn't suit you, then feel free to sit in any comfortable way, maybe legs straight, maybe feet flat in front of you with knees bent. Take a moment to be comfortable. Get the weight even on each side of your bottom. Bring your hands together in prayer position or rest your hands down on your legs and close your eyes. We're filming today with the windows open, so there will be birdsong outside. As you sit, notice the foundation of your pose. Be as even as you can there. Develop your sensitivity to how your body connects with the floor. It isn't a simple feeling. There are many sensations, places that connect heavier, places where the sensations are sharper, more obvious. This is where we take a moment to turn ourselves towards that way of perceiving our bodies. Be lifted in your spine, comfortable and relaxed in your shoulders. And notice and be deliberate about how you're holding your head. Find a place for your skull to feel balanced on top of your spine. And let your face find a quietness, free from expression. You can sit for as long as you like at the start of your practice, but in this recording right now we're going to bow our face forwards, keep the spine upright, take your neck as far as you comfortably can, no force and no need to go to extremes. Rest your hands down to your legs, open your eyes with that downward gaze. Come slowly back to focusing your vision and then lift the head. So the first thing we're going to do today is leave the legs exactly as they are, crossed or otherwise, whatever you chose, and then you're going to twist to your right. So your right hand comes behind you, your left hand perhaps reaches across your body to your right knee. Still notice the weight on either side of your bottom and don't distort that weight as you turn. If you do notice any distortion, adjust it if you can, and if you can't, then ask the question where it's coming from. So facing the front again, we'll do that to the other side. So we begin centered in how we sense the weight across our sitting bones, and then as we turn, this is not an extreme turn because it's early in the practice, but notice if the weight maybe shifts forwards on the right sitting bone or the right buttock. Does it move backwards on the left? We want to avoid that as much as possible so that the twist begins higher up and takes place higher up the spine. It isn't wrong to turn lower down the spine, but for now we want to try and restrain the sitting bone, restrain the pelvis to face forwards and encourage the twist to come lower down the spine. Face the front again, and then if you are using any pose that isn't symmetrical, so for example cross legs, you need to change the cross of your legs. If you're in a symmetrical position, then stay as you are and we'll go to each side again. So to the right, and then face the centre. and to the left. And then we face the front. So we're going to stand up, stand with feet together in Tadasana unless your back is sensitive to that, and then feet apart, or you have any other contraindication for feet together, which generally are about pregnancy or lower abdominal conditions. Spread out your toes, bring the weight back to the centre of the heel, lift up the front of the body, release down, reach down with the back of the body, including the tailbone, reaching in. Encourage the hands to stretch down the whole of the arms. Be careful with the shoulders, don't just drag them down, but allow them to hang. Make sure they are around the sides of the body. Then raise the arms, but don't raise the shoulders. Broad in the arms, out approximately shoulder height, and you can look to either side or practice with a mirror in front of you so that you can see whether you are even in the arms. Still weight back in the heels. Turn the whole of the arms upside down, so as much as possible turning from the root of the arm. Turn the inner arm to face forwards. Stretch out with the thumbs, bring the palms flat towards the ceiling, and then bring the fingers up so that the palms become parallel. If your shoulders don't allow you to come this far or your chest begins to drop, then anywhere within that arc, including keeping the arms out at shoulder or lower than shoulder height, is fine. Try to keep the little fingers facing forwards, the palms facing each other and the thumbs facing behind. Draw the corners of the shoulders back and down, the inner corners here, draw them back and down, and then bring the arms back down again and release. I'm going to turn to the side so you may see. If you need assistance to reach the floor, then you're going to take some blocks now. Blocks or bricks will do here. Or if you're able to reach the floor with straight arms and straight legs, then take your hands to the floor. Half Uttanasana is the name of this pose. Half because we keep the arms straight and we aim to curve the upper chest, the upper back, so it feels that the collarbones are reaching forwards. Bend your knees for a moment to assist that feeling. So the back doesn't tighten and arch towards the ceiling. The back is a concave shape. It is caving down towards the floor so that the front chest can lift up. Bring your chin forwards if your neck's comfortable with that. Keep your head more neutral if your neck doesn't like that position. And then straighten the legs again, keeping the concave back. Straightening up by lifting up through the legs, the inside of the legs, the outside of the legs. Of course, the hamstrings are stretching as well. Reach forwards and stretch out with the toes. Take a moment to notice your tummy button, your navel. Make sure it's just lifting towards the spine, not dropping to the floor. Keep the lift up, the legs. And then breathe in and stand up. We're going to go into downward facing dog. Straighten out on that. Feet on all fours. Tuck your toes under and lift up. Knees bent to begin with. Straight line from hands to hips. Again, tuck your tummy button slightly up towards your spine so that you don't overwork the lower back. And then straighten out the legs. Aim to keep your ears between your upper arms. Separate the shoulders, straighten the arms, straighten the legs. Reach back with the heels. And although the heels aim to be low, the muscles in the legs are lifting from the heels to the hips. And then rest down onto all fours. Now next time that we are in downward facing dog, we're going to step 1 foot forwards so that we're doing the pose called Parsvottanasana. Now, if you know that pose, or if you needed blocks or bricks in the last pose, Uttanasana, the standing bend touching the floor, you will need blocks or bricks for your hands for this next pose. So let's try this. We're starting downward facing dog. Have the bricks at the front end of your mat. If you don't have this kind of equipment, use a chair, which you would also place at the front end of your mat here, and you'll put your hands on that in a moment, not yet. So in downward facing dog, lifting up, and then I'm going to bring my right leg forwards all the way to my hands if I can. If you need to, this is the point at which you put your hands on the bricks, and then you straighten the front leg. So the bricks can be either way up. Taller is less challenging for the legs, although that is relative, because if your legs need the space, it will still be a significant challenge. So I'm reaching my back heel down towards the floor. I'm trying to notice that my hips haven't swung off to one side, trying to keep them square so that this side of my hip and this side of my hip are the same distance from the front of the mat. I'm doing that as best I can. Lifting up with the front leg, and again reaching forwards with my chest. That is the same as in when we were doing Uttanasana, hands touching the floor, legs straight. Now we go back from here, so we bend the front leg and we bring our hands to the floor again, so we're stable on the floor, and then we lift this leg back. The bricks are in the way, you don't need to move them. Lift the legs back in downward facing dog, and then we need to bring the left leg forwards. So bring your left leg forwards, take your hand support your hands if you need to. Hands are solid on the floor otherwise. The back foot turns slightly out, so the toes are out, the heels are in just a tiny bit. Straightening that front leg. Watch that your hips haven't turned to one side. So trying to avoid them turning to one side. Each side of the hip feels an equal distance from the front of your mat. Look underneath yourself and see what you can see. Usually the front hip tries to draw forwards and the back hip lags behind. So if you need a clue, look to see if that's happening in your body. Reach the chest forwards, reach the back heel towards the floor, and then we're going to go back again. So we move the bricks out of the way, we bend the front leg, hands nice and secure on the floor, lift this front leg back, and then you're in downward facing dog again. And then we'll rest down. So we're going to stretch the legs lying on the floor for a moment. We're going to take both legs up into the air first of all. So lie back onto the floor. Take a belt or a strap. A secure, firm piece of fabric is sufficient. Place it around your heels. Feet are together. Hold with a slight bend in the elbow. Have as much of your tailbone on the floor as possible. So that might mean moving the legs back slightly. Bending the elbow helps you to be broad in the shoulders. There will be a slight arch in the middle back, but don't overarch that middle back. So the middle back section should be light on the floor, but not lifting away from the floor. Now we're going to lower the right leg. So take the right leg out of the belt, the left leg stays where it is, and we're lowering that leg. If you're not confident in your back, then you can bend your leg and put the foot flat on the floor and straighten it out. If you are confident in your back, you will lower the leg straight all the way down. If this creates any tension or pinching in your back, then you bend your knee and put the foot flat on the floor to get the foot down at any point. So it's a back and abdomen strengthener to lower the leg like that, but it shouldn't set off any pinching or back spasms. Do be careful with that. And then we can reverse the action, so we lift off the floor. Again, if it's tough but you can do half of the pose, then bend your knee to take your foot off the floor. So you would start out not by lifting, because that is the most likely to injure you. Bend the knee a little bit, straighten the leg part way, and then lift the leg up. So you will still get benefit from the pose, but you won't injure yourself. Then we're going to lower the left leg. So I'm stretching out straight with both legs, controlling the leg in the air with the belt. I only have my will and my muscles to control the leg that's lowering. When it reaches the floor, I don't lose the intensity of the stretch or the intensity of the control and connection. Stay with the stretch in both legs. And then I'm going to raise that leg off the floor, slowly bringing it up to join the one in the air. Both legs are in the air. Now I'm going to imagine resistance here across my top thigh, and if your hamstrings have got any further stretch that they can do, you are moving the front thigh away from you as if there was a belt around there, but you're drawing the toes and the feet over. I'm not rolling over, I'm not trying to mimic a backwards roll, I'm resisting the lift of my back, although it will come eventually. It's the last part that moves. Keeping the legs straight, keeping the shoulders comfortable, resting back, and then we'll take the legs back up, bend the knees and bring the feet down. Okay, so sit back up on your mat. We're going to sit in Dandasana, which is straight legs and a straight back. We're going to interlace the fingers, turn the hands inside out and reach up. If your back struggles to lift and you find that you roll backwards, you can either bend your knees to give your back more freedom, or you can sit on a block or two. So either method will assist your back to be able to lift. That lift needs to start right down here. Bring the hands back down again. Notice which little finger is on the bottom of the pile. Change so the other little finger is on the bottom of the pile of fingers, so interlacing the fingers the less usual way round, drawing the shoulders down. That less usual way varies person to person. Reaching the hands up, drawing the shoulders down, staying aware of the legs, aware of your lower back, bringing the hands back down again, and then release the arms, bend your knees. So we're going to do Virabhadrasana 1. We're going to begin facing forwards, take the feet apart, turn the right leg, this side for me, deeply round, and then the left leg all the way around, so I end up facing along my mat. Hands on the hips. Now when we had the feet like this coming from downward facing dog, I was talking about keeping the hips square, so make sure both sides of your hips are square to the end of your mat, trying not to let one drag back, and then bend your knee. Keep the sitting bones low down here, moving forward so that we don't get any overarching in the lower back. If you struggle and you do get any kind of pinching, you may lean forwards a little bit. That might help you to adjust your hips. But the aim ultimately in this pose is to be upright in the torso, but it is challenging. We're going to come out of the lunge of Warrior Pose 1 or Virabhadrasana 1. Turn your feet to the front, arrange them so they're straight again, and then we'll go to the other side. So I'm going to turn my left toes deeply round, my right foot all the way around. That might be mirrored for you on the screen. Hips, I try to turn them so that they are square to the front edge of my mat as I'm facing now. Straighten both legs to begin with. This back leg stays straight as we bend the right leg now, that's the front leg. Again, if it bothers your lower back, lean forwards a little bit, just enough to take away any pinching. But the aim is ultimately to be upright in the torso. And then we are going to straighten the legs. Bring your feet to face the front and then bring your feet together. Now we're going to use the blocks or a chair to support our hands again and go back into that lunge, which is called Dandasana. So you have bricks, which are like this. In class with me, these are purple bricks normally, but these are the ones I have for home. You can use those. If you don't, then take a chair. This is a yoga chair, but any chair will do. Ideally one that doesn't have a low bar here, because we're going to put our feet underneath it, but you can make do. So I will show you with a chair, but there's no reason why you can't do this with bricks. You may even be able to do this with your hands on the floor. So you can have something for your hands and then decide afterwards whether it's necessary for the second time. So we're going to turn to the right first. Turn your left toes around and then your right foot around. So you're facing your support, whether that's bricks or a chair. Square hip, and then we're going to bend the knee again. So at this point, if you're using a chair, it's important that you haven't got it too close to you because it will get in the way of your knee. Then we're going to lean forwards and put our hands onto the chair seat. So if you need your arms straight, you can, but actually you can bend your elbows if necessary. Navel lines up with the inner thigh, and then we're going to straighten the front leg. You could also put your hands onto the chair legs. Exactly how you use the chair is not the issue. The chair is thus just there to give you some extra height if taking your hands to the floor is not an option for your body yet. Or maybe you want to do like I just did and work in stages so that you can decide how far to go. Then to come up, we're going to reverse. So we're going to bend the knee again. Keep the hips square. And then we're going to stand up with the torso. Keep the knee bent. So we're back in warrior pose without the arms. And then we're going to straighten the leg. We're going to turn the feet to the side. And we'll do all of that on the other side. So if you're using support, move it to the other side. I'll show you with the bricks on the other side, just for the purposes of showing you that technique. So it can be chair, it can be bricks, anything as long as it's even for both hands. Turn your right toes deeply round, but not quite all the way. The front foot, the left foot goes all the way round. Press weight into the back edge of that right foot. So the anchor point of this pose is the back of the back heel. Hips square to the front of your mat as you're now facing. Bend the knee. Stay upright as much as you're able to. So we're fully in warrior pose 1. Not distracted by the knowledge of what we're doing next. Then we're going to lean forwards. We take our hands to whatever support we need or have chosen to use. And then we straighten that front leg. Reach forwards with the chest. Lift up through both legs. And now we're going to reverse. So you're going to bend your knee. Keep the knee bent so we fully go into warrior pose. We don't just bail out and stand up without paying attention. And then straighten the legs. Turn to face the front and jump or step your feet together. Now, you know what support you need for your hands now, so I'm going to use the bricks. We're going to repeat that again. And this time when we straighten the legs, so when we go from leaning here with support and we straighten this front leg, we're going to straighten it with great intention. We're going to press the foot into the floor and really lift up through the whole leg. So we will have hands down as we do that, but we will press this foot very solidly into the floor, especially through the heel, and we will lift up, especially through the front of the leg, but the entire leg if you can, to get more lift. That also helps with the hips at the front here, so it helps to avoid turning outwards and helps to keep us square. So we will do that with your right leg being the front leg first. Feet wide, turn your left toes largely round, right foot all the way round. Warrior pose number 1 first of all, so straight back leg, front knee bends as upright as you can in the torso. Really press back to that back leg. Then lean forwards, don't unbend this leg yet. Get your hands nice and solid on whatever support you're using, be that floor, chair, blocks. Now the huge intensity of pushing through this front foot. So push through the heel, lift up like there's a huge weight on the back of that hip. Lift up through the legs, push the heel into the floor. All the muscles of the right leg lift up away from the floor, and that all reaches and culminates in lifting the right hip very strongly up and back. Also lifting the chest very strongly forwards. Don't forget to straighten the back leg. Mine had sneaked away from my attention a little bit. And now we go back through warrior pose 1. So we will bend the knee, deeply bend the knee, and then stand up. Keep the knee bent so we fully go through the leg part of warrior 1 at least. Straighten the leg. Turn the feet to face the front, and final version of this, or final repetition, nothing new, same thing. So turn your right toes deeply round, left foot all the way around, press the heel into the floor, bend the knee for warrior pose, pressing the heel, trying to encourage the hip around, sitting bones forwards. I've said all of these things already. Lean forwards, keep the knee deeply bent, bring your hands down, and then as we straighten the leg, we make that an enormous challenge. We put lots of effort and, importantly, attention into the action, pushing through the heel, lifting up with the muscles of the front leg, which ends in the front hip really lifting up and back, lifting up through both legs, reaching the back heel down, so both heels are aiming to be very solid against the floor. Lifting the chest forwards, comfortable in the shoulders, and then we're going to bend the knee and we're going to stand into warrior pose 1, so keep this knee bent, and then we're going to straighten both legs, turn the feet to the front, and then bring the feet back together again. We're going to do Prasarita Padottanasana now, so I'll just straighten this mat up. It keeps moving on the carpet. So we're going to do Prasarita Padottanasana. Again, this is a pose where you can use support if you need it. So chair, blocks, wide feet, and then we fold at the hips. We bring the hands to support or to the floor. The floor will be a bit closer than before because of the broad legs. We're going to bend the knees for a moment, keep the navel lifting up, reach the chest forwards, trying to flatten out the back, and then we're going to press the heels into the floor and lift up through the legs, just like we lifted up through the legs in the last pose. So we're carrying that lift forwards into this pose. I want you to go through that action again. So bend the knees a little, adjust your back, because bending the knees gives your back some more space. But then the most important thing is this pressing down through the heels and the balls of the feet and lifting up through the legs. It's possible to straighten the legs without that effort, but we want to put that effort in. We are lifting the muscles of the legs in towards the bone and up towards the hips. If you feel you have freedom to go further, then you can bring your hands flat onto the floor. You can bend your elbows backwards and you can begin to fold. Keep the shoulders lifting away from the floor. Hands can go to be in line with your feet, and aim the crown of your head towards the floor. If it's close but it's not going to reach today, then bring the floor a little bit closer by using your blocks. If the floor is a long way away, you can instead take your forehead to the chair seat, for example. Then breathe in as you straighten your arms, bring them forwards, edge your feet towards one another, and then breathe in again to stand up. So we're going to do a couple of seated poses, and I will change the angle of the camera. So we are seated, different angle. Dandasana, we've already done this once today, so you're going to put your fingertips beside you, use your hands to press down, to lift up, Flex the feet as if you're doing this against a wall. Move in with your lower back, shoulders down. Then again, interlace the fingers as we did before. Stretch them forwards. Now this time, if raising your hands like that is not comfortable or practical for you, or if your shoulders want an easier option, use your strap or belt, hold it whatever width apart you need, and then take your hands up like so. So you can interlace the fingers if your shoulders are free enough, otherwise we'll reach up with the hands like so. Don't lose attention to the legs and the feet. Bring the hands back down again. If you're interlacing the fingers, change the interlace. Stretch away. If you're using the belt, then we go back up again. Bring the hands back down again. Now we're going to do Janu Shirshasana, which means head to knee pose. Bend your knee out to the side and don't allow the foot to go underneath the leg. The foot goes beside the leg. If you are unable to keep this leg on the floor, the whole of this outer calf on the floor, then you need to support underneath that. If it's just a small lift, you can support underneath there. If the knee is very high, then you need to sit up on some blocks until the knee will release down a little bit more. Ideally, the hip and the knee are at similar heights. Then we put one hand in front of the knee, one hand behind you, so that you can turn your navel to feel that it faces towards your big toe. Lift up with the bent leg hand, so my right leg is bent, right hand lifts up, then come forwards, and if you can, you get the foot. However, if the foot is too far away, again, use your belt or strap and hold like so. Make sure that you're not rounding your back. You're leading forwards with your sternum, reaching forwards over the top of the big toe with the sternum. Make sure that there is some ability to control your shoulder. It hasn't been dragged forwards. Whatever you're holding on to, bring the other hand around. Reach the chest forwards. Pay attention, even though you can't really see this leg now, you can still see it with your touch sensation and with your awareness. So notice that it doesn't lift up as you come forwards. If it does lift up, you need to work to keep it further down or rest it on some blocks so it isn't floating in the air. If you're able now, you bend the elbows and begin to bring the top of your head to face towards that space above your big toe. You can rest the head on a block if you are close enough down. And then we're going to come back up again and we'll repeat the same on the other side. So if you needed a belt on one side, sometimes you need it again on the other side, sometimes you don't. So if you're not sure, have it to hand. If you are sure, then definitely have it or don't, as you know. Again, the legs may not be symmetrical either, so you may need support on this side that you didn't need on the other side. Left leg is bent for me, so left hand is in front of there. I'm lifting, I'm turning just enough that I feel my navel points towards my big toe. Just felt I took that leg back a bit far. If you take this leg back too far in an effort to get the knee down, you turn yourself away from the foot and you make it a very long way. So don't drag this hip back as you take the leg back. Try to keep the hips square facing front, just like I've made that point in a lot of the standing poses today. Lift up with your left hand this time, come forwards, take the foot if you can. If you're going to rest the head down, then be prepared with something for resting the head down in a moment. It's a good time, if you want to, you can have a chair seat so you can rest your head down but not have to take it too low. Bring the other hand around, elbows wide, lifting the sternum above the big toe. That helps to keep the lift. We don't want the back to round out behind you. If the skin at the back here feels very tight, that's probably because it is. So you need to come back up again until you can take that tightness out. Stop everything rounding behind you as if it's being magnetically pulled, and begin to lift forwards with the chest. So bend forwards as you're able to now. You can rest your forehead down if it comes easily. Don't push anything or force anything, especially at the extreme ends of poses. And when you're still, you have not stopped working. You need to notice where the weight is in the pose. Keep your awareness vigilant to notice where in your body feels tight, where you might have forgotten, where can you adjust, where might be telling you that you're at risk of injury. And then lift your head, use your hands to push yourself back up to sitting. Now this last pose is optional because not everybody is comfortable with crossed legs and coming forwards. So the pose is to cross your legs, and then we're going to rest forwards. So showing you from the side, this is how it looks. Crossing the legs, and then we'll be resting the forehead onto something. You may be able to get all the way to the floor, but you may need some support. If that doesn't work for you, you've got a couple of options. One is to simply skip it. Alternatively, you can bend your knees and come forwards. It won't give you the same hip opening. Or also, if I just lie down. So coming forwards is quite a resting pose when we rest the head. But if you want to stretch the outer hip, an alternative is to bend the knees like so. So I have my knees, feet flat, cross the ankle over, knee and ankle are trying to stay equally away from you. And then again, you can use your chair. So I have a little bench, which you can see there. So if I put myself in line with the bench, you can see that I can, and that is more of a challenge there. So you can, if you want the resting, then I would do the first alternative that I showed, where you are sat but you're leaning forwards, and maybe find a way to rest your head perhaps onto a chair. But if you want the hip opening, then working like this will help you. You can also use a wall to rest the foot. So alternatively, or the first alternative was to cross your legs. If you anticipate you're not going to be able to rest your forehead onto the floor, get the support that you need. And then you're going to lean forwards, keep your shoulders back, keep the back nice and flat. So this isn't a rounding forwards, it's a leaning forwards. Rest the forehead onto your support and release. And then we can come up, and we need to change the cross of the legs. So whichever lower leg is in front, you need to change so the other leg is in front. That challenges your hips differently on each side. And then you will come forwards again. Again, that might feel differently on the hips as well. You may have more freedom of movement on one side than the other. And if you are practicing one of the alternatives and you need to change to the other side, then that was also your cue to change to do the other leg. Now, I'm not going to record a specific relaxation portion to this practice, which doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't do one, but you can do that at your own pace. What I would suggest is if you enjoy the cross legs, maybe you'd like to recross and do each side for a longer period, or simply lie down for Shavasana, which if I show you the basic setup, albeit at a strange angle perhaps, you lie down with your knees bent, then straighten the legs out, arms to the side. So an odd angle, but we lie down for Shavasana. Alternatively, as I said, you may want to cross your legs. But that's the end of this recording for today. So I hope you go on and enjoy the relaxation part of the practice, and I will see you again with another class very soon. Thank you.